Hello everybody, welcome to our presentation. Today we're going to learn a little bit about dentin. So first things first, what is dentin? Dentin is a living sensitive tissue that is not normally exposed to the oral environment. So our root dentin is covered by cementin and our crown dentin is covered by enamel. Like bone, it's primarily composed of an organic matrix of the following here: 20% collagen fibers, 70% of the mineral hydroxyapatite, and 10% water. There's more than one type of dentin. There's actually three, and here they are. The first is primary dentin, the second is secondary dentin, and the third is tertiary dentin. Let's take a look at these.
Primary dentin is pointed out in the photo to the right. The first primary dentin formed is the mantle dentin. This is deposited first at the DEJ and extends 150 microns from the junction pulpwood to the zone of globular or interglobular dentin. It is also composed of large collagen fibers. Globular dentin is adjacent to the mantle dentin and has hypomineralized areas between globules of dentin termed interglobular spaces. Circumpulpal dentin directly underlies mantle and globular dentin and makes up the bulk of the tooth's primary dentin. It may be 6 to 8 millimeters thick in the crown and thinner in the roots. Next, we have secondary dentin, which develops after the crown of the tooth is in clinical occlusal function and when the roots are nearly completed. It is also a narrow band bordering the pulp and deposited more slowly than primary dentin.
Alright, and let's move to our last type of dentin, and it's called tertiary dentin, and it results from pulpal stimulation. It forms only on sites of odontoblastic activation. It resembles bone more than dentin at times, which is called osteodentin, and the formation can be a result of atresion, abrasion, caries, or even restorative procedure, and the dentins only deposit underlying those stimulated areas, and lastly can be reactionary or reparative. Predentin. Predentin is a band of newly formed unmineralized matrix of dentin at the pulpal border of the dentin. And we have two stages. The first stage is organic matrix is deposited. The second stage, inorganic mineral substance is added. We have tubular and intertubular relations, and these relations have primary and secondary tubules, intertubular or peritubular dentin and scarlatic dentin, as well as intertubular dentin.
Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at primary and secondary tubules now. So primary tubules are the main tubules that extend from the DEJ into the forming enamel matrix. So if you look at the picture to the right, those are going to be your thicker branches there. Odontoblastic process forms an S-shaped curve. Now, our secondary tubules are the processes that branch at right angles to the main processes. So these are almost like little branches coming off of the main ones. Then there are lateral branches called caniculi that connect tubules to one another. Okay, so now we're going to be taking a look at peritubular, intertubular, and sclerotic dentin. So peritubular or intratubular dentin is the hypermineralized collar surrounding the tubules. If you take a look at the picture, this looks very smooth and almost tightly packed together. This is different than intertubular dentin, which is less calcified and surrounds the peritubular dentin. So you can see from the picture, it's very spaced out, almost looks very bumpy, and it's kind of everything else that surrounds. Now, when tubules are obliterated, sclerotic or transparent dentin can result. Now let's take a look at incremental lines. So we have two different kinds of incremental lines. The first one is the lines of von Ebner. These lines are the lines that form as the dentin is deposited over time. Now dentin also has something called a neonatal line. This line distinguishes which dentin gets deposited in the womb and which dentin gets deposited outside of the womb. Now, the reason that this line is so clear is because dentin has a lot more imperfections once it's deposited outside of the womb.
Next, we are going to take a look at the granular layer of dentin. Another term for the granular layer is the layer of tomes. This is the layer of dentin underlying the cementum which covers the root. It also increases slightly in width from the cemento-enamel junction to the root apex. So if you take a look at that picture, you can see the layer of tomes or the granular layer is getting just a bit thicker as it reaches the apex.
Alright, and now let's take a look at dentin-enamel junction. The dentin-enamel junction increases slightly in width from the cement-enamel junction to the root apex. The scalloped edge plays a special role. It fuses the enamel and dentin properly, which increases its bonding strength.
Okay, now we're going to be taking a look at permeability. So here's a fun fact to start you guys off. Did you know that the outer surface of dentin is actually about 5 times larger in the surface area than the inner surface? This is because the tubules are smaller and they're further apart at the DEJ, and they're larger and closer together at the pulpal surface. Now, osmotic pressure causes fluid to flow outward from the pulp to the DEJ. And when you do a filling, fluid can be seen on the surface of newly cut dentin due to this osmotic pressure. Then bacteria has to actually fight against all of this pressure to reach the pulp. There's also something called a smear layer. This forms from cavity prep, and when the smear layer is removed, it actually increases the bond strength to dentin.
Next, we will look at the repair process. Dentin is continuously formed throughout life, but pathological effects may occur. These effects may be caused by dental caries, attrition, abrasion, and cavity preparation, ultimately resulting in a change to the dentin. To add, the stimulation of odontoblasts leads to increased dentinogenesis underlying the area of pathologic change. If this stimulation of dentin is mild enough for the odontoblast to survive, then reparative dentin will form. Also, sclerosis of the dentin may occur due to the death of an odontoblast.
Alrighty, so next we're just going to take a look at some clinical considerations when it comes to dentin. So our first is that dentinal tubules increase in size by the loss of intratubular or peritubular dentin. This dentin is subject to decalcification by caries or acid cleansing of the cavity, which also removes the smear layer. This dentin is about 40% more highly calcified than the remainder of the dentin. Our second consideration is that a carious attack can sometimes result in the death of the odontoblast underlying the surface lesion. The dentinal tubules normally contain a living odontoblast process, dentinal fluid, and sometimes a nerve terminal. After the odontoblast dies, the dentinal fluid will crystallize and fill the dentinal tubule with sclerotic dentin. Sclerotic dentin can also be called transparent dentin, thus preventing further insult to the pulp. Our third consideration is that dentin is a vital tissue that contains living cell processes. Because these branching processes permeate the dentin so completely, it is not possible to touch a cavity preparation in dentin with an explorer without inflicting pain.
Alright everyone, we are getting close to the end of our presentation. Have you guys heard about the most important points? Alright, so after learning all about dentin, there are definitely some things that really stood out to us. We found it really interesting that most of our dentin is actually made up of an inorganic material. It is really cool that dentin has a natural design to it in the shape of scallops, and these scallops actually have a purpose, which is to help dentins bond with the enamel. Another interesting thing that not everyone knows is that dentin actually is continuously forming throughout our lifetimes.
Okay, so after listening to our lovely presentation, we have some questions for you guys, so the pressure is on. So our first question to you guys is, what kind of pulp is formed due to pulpal stimulation? Our next question to you is, what are the 3 components of dentin? And our last question, what are the lateral branches that connect the dental tubules together called? Okay, we've reached the end of our presentation. We hope you didn't get too hungry with all this scallop talk. I know I did, so I'm probably gonna go get some seafood after this. So we hope that you enjoyed our presentation, and we hope you learned a little bit more about dentin, because we certainly did. Catch you guys later.